Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 28 of Patch Notes, the Homegames podcast. I'm Yazeed, who got it right, and this is Joseph.
Hello, I'm Joseph, the Date Master. Today is May 3rd, 2020.
Welcome to May, Joseph. Welcome to May.
Welcome. Thanks. It's going to be 8 p.m. Tomorrow's May the 4th. Do you do those? Oh, my God. I was going to ask you, do you do that? Do you say that thing?
I do, ironically.
Is that worse than saying it genuinely? Because you're kind of just making fun of the people who have joy in their lives still.
That's a loaded question if I've ever heard one.
I'm just making conversation.
I think it's worse than using it unironically, but I'm into Star Wars, but I'm not like, I want to be a Jedi into Star Wars, you know?
Yeah.
I just appreciate the I didn't get mad when Disney destroyed all of the EU expanded universe stuff and then made their own and made all that stuff Legends. I didn't get butthurt. I was just like, oh neat, they're finally fixing the storyline and the lore behind Star Wars.
Do you like 7 through 9?
Honestly, I enjoyed watching them quite a bit. All of them came out around my birthday, and I ended up going to a lot of them on my birthday, so I have really good memories about them. So I think that might be not tainting, but adding a bias to it, because it's I was really happy because it's my birthday. My family took me out to go watch a Star Wars movie. We had a good time with it. I don't know. So it's I think there's a little bit of bias for me on there, but I enjoyed it. I think of the newer Star Wars movies, I really liked Rogue One more than I liked 7, 8, 9, though.
I haven't seen 8 or 9, but I saw 7 with you for your birthday, and then I saw Rogue One and fell asleep during the first 30 minutes. I thought it was so boring.
Really?
Yeah.
You missed some great moments.
I'm just not a fan of the look or vibe or anything of the new Star Wars. It all just feels weird and sterile, and it's I don't care anymore. The old Star Wars had a charm. The new Star Wars is just whoa, lasers and very expensive because Disney, and I just don't care anymore.
Yeah. You know what I actually noticed? I watched the original... Sorry, we're going to get into the Homegames section in a moment, but I just want to get this point out. I watched the most recent Jurassic Park, and there's a scene really early on where I can't tell if the actor slipped or if the character was supposed to slip, but they just left it in the movie, and it seems so natural, and it makes me connect with that character more. I'm oh, that character's a dopey person who can't walk on rocks, he's slipping and falling all over himself.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've ever seen that in a more modern movie. I don't see characters slipping up and stuff like that and being oh, I see.
Yeah. You know what I've yet to see? This is kind of related. I've yet to see a movie where someone is they say something, and the other person's just, what? And the person just repeat. It happens all the time in regular conversation. I have no idea what you just said. What did you just say? But that never happens in movies or TV shows. It's everything has to matter to the plot. Nah, just give them a what every now and then. It's the equivalent of the slipping and falling. I'll just go with it. Did you see 1917? Did we talk about that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
The scene where he's running towards the camera and all the dudes are jumping over the wall. When he runs into that one guy, that wasn't planned. That was just a mistake in the timing of that.
When you said that movie, I realized that movie feels like an older movie.
Yeah.
It looks new and it's crisp, but to me it reminds me of an older style of movie almost.
Yeah. I see what you mean.
I really like that movie a lot.
It's a great movie. I don't want to watch it again, but it's a great movie.
I don't think I could watch it again.
Yeah. It's all the tension. It's a lot of tension and then 3 big, maybe 4 big, maybe 5 big moments. But once you know the moments, it's the tension is kind of just gone. It's not a kind of movie that you could just watch over and over again.
You say Interstellar.
I still haven't seen that. I've heard from a lot of people that I would like it, but I haven't seen it.
I think you would.
I'll add it to my list.
Yeah, right. Are you ready to hop into home game stuff?
Home game stuff.
All right. So, I know that you you said you may or may not get to do a lot of home game stuff, but then you told me today that you did do home game stuff. So, do you want to kick us off with the stuff that you were able to do?
Yes. So, yeah, like I said last week, didn't think I'd be able to work on home game stuff. Turns out I had quite a bit of time between moving and packing, and the times when we were not moving and packing, I could just have a laptop and I can do stuff. So, I was going through the dashboard with Synovia, just like the current state of it, just showing her what it does, and she was like, oh, well, this needs to look like this, and this needs to be able to look like this, and kind of going through all this different stuff and realized that I had to make some changes. So the first thing that Synovia said is that the dashboard should look like a TV screen. Like, it should look like the logo. So there should be like a screen in the center with the game that you're playing, and there should always be like this Homegames logo, Homegames whatever outside of all that. So, the current existing like dashboard and games and all that kind of stuff is just one like basically no border, no more, like nothing around it, just a screen, no colors, no nothing. So, one of the changes I made is to basically have an area of your screen that always has like this yellow border, the yellow whatever Homegames color. Excuse me, and then it has like a black outline and then a white whatever to give the illusion of like a screen or whatever. Excuse me. Anyway, it's like the basic looks of a TV. But if you think about the way that it normally looks and the way that it assumes all screens are 16 by 9, and it'll always try to stretch them out to meet the width. So if I have a 4x3 game, you have to scroll vertically because it'll take up your horizontal or your width but not your height, right? And it's like 4x3. So anyway, I had to do some tweaking there to make it work, but 4x3 games actually totally work now. So it's like in my 16 by 9 screen, it's actually a little bit smushed because of the Firefox toolbar. So it's a little bit wider than 16 by 9. There is this like, big thing of yellow border, whatever, with the logo, and then the little square screen in the middle of like stuff that you can click on. So then that will change. Everything else remains consistent. So anyway, aspect ratio is the one thing I kind of fixed there. The other thing is supporting shapes that are not rectangles. So the current way that you can do a game node is just giving it a width and a height and a starting X and a starting Y. So the assumption is that it'll always just make a rectangle where it'll just take your X, Y, blow it out by the width, expand it out by the height, and then that's it. But
that's super cool, man.
Yeah, to support not that, I had to make it so it's just kind of generic coordinates, so you can just draw a polygon. So I say from percentage X20, Y20, I can either make a line or an arc to the next. So I can either make a circle or I can make just a straight whatever. And it's all just percentages. So my like stupid dumb hack to make it to tell the instructions, hey, this is an arc to this line as opposed to a line to this line, is if the number is greater than 100, then you want to do an arc to it, that number minus 100, right? So like, if I want to make an arc to 50-50, then it's 150-150, for example. But anyway, so I got that working. The hard part is getting the algorithm to determine if polygons intersect. Like rectangles intersecting is easy because it's just the 4 vertices, and you just have to check those against each other. But if I have a kind of arbitrary polygon that can just be poking out in however ways, there's convex and concave polygons. Apparently there's different something math. I found math on the internet when I was looking this stuff up. And yeah, it's trickier. So I have the thing to determine if a point falls within the polygon. That's kind of a tricky math thing again, but I got that working for the clicking. So yeah, the tricky thing will be intersecting polygon math. I know that there is a way to do it, like for example, PostGIS, the extension for Postgres, like the geoinfographic system extension, whatever. There's a function in there to determine if 2 polygons intersect, and it's like sub 1 millisecond, crazy fast. And that's for any kind of lat long polygons on the Earth or whatever, just arbitrary. So whatever that thing is that's powering that, I could probably apply to this. It just seems like a tricky mathy thing to do.
That's going to be really cool, though, when we have, not square polygons and stuff like that. It's a pretty big step from being like, everything's a square to being like, everything's a complex polygon.
Yeah.
And then you can have, like, sprites and, like, really fix hitboxes and stuff like that.
Yes. Yeah, because, for example, if you have, like, a circle image and you want to make that clickable, you can't do that now because the part that's clickable has to be a square. So in order to kind of support, things like that, I also got like a triangle working. So just to see if I could, I made the dashboard modal thing that comes up the settings. Instead of a rectangle, it's a triangle. And then last night when I was messing with it, I got a triangle with rounded corners. So kind of the basics of what that will be.
Yeah. Very cool, man. I'm really excited for that, actually.
Yeah.
Like, super duper excited for it. Because I also feel like I feel like rounded edges are the new in thing.
No.
Like everything, like even Discord. Like if you look really carefully at the squares, they're rounded.
Yeah.
So
the thing that our faces are in right now are rectangles, rounded little boxes. Yeah, it's like a very small change, but it adds to a lot to the visual thing. I think the thing was I wanted to make the game or the Homegames dashboard white settings modal thing come up, but I wanted it to look like it was a sub thing of the home button. So I was talking to Synovia and I was like, oh, there should be a close button here, and she's like, no, the home button should either open up the settings menu or close the settings menu when you're on the home thing. If you're on something else, it takes you home. The home button has different whatever, but it's always there and it always does something. So in this context, it closes the modal. So in that case, I wanted it to look like it was a part of the button, like it was a sub thing of the button. So I wanted to make it smaller and kind of like a corner meeting the button, but the sharp edges just looked weird. So I wanted to make it like a bubbly thing. So maybe I can make it like a bubble on one and then a less pronounced bubble on the rest of the corner. Anyway, whatever. Point is, that's why I started looking into that stuff, and I almost have it working, but all that code is an absolute mess. But this whole room I'm in is empty, basically, except for that box back there and the desk that has all this computer and stuff on it. So once we move this stuff into the pod thing, I won't have anything to do. So I'll be working on Homegames just here. So I'll probably have some more progress on that.
Dude, that's super cool. I'm very excited for it. I'm like, the aspect ratio fixes, like those are cool, but complex shapes I'm very excited for.
Yeah.
I mean, that in addition to like all the other stuff that you worked on like before you left.
Yeah.
Dude, there's some really cool stuff coming.
Yeah, there's a ton. It kind of makes me feel bad because it's exactly the kind of thing that you say you didn't want to review, where it's like I just do the thing where I keep throwing in more ideas. It's like, wouldn't it be cool if I rewrote this again? So that's what I'm doing.
Oh, sorry. I woke her up. Sorry, I woke my dog up and she scampered off. Nice, man. So on my side of things, this is actually something that you fixed already, but I didn't have org access to see or publish packages associated with the Homegames organization on NPM. So I couldn't create the actual like pull request and stuff like that or create the new package. So instead what I did was I paused my Square changes that I was working on. And instead I just modified the node_modules like squish.js files that needed to be updated. And then I started going through the game server side of stuff. So like just like the Homegames repo's code basically. So like not Homegames web, Homegames it's proper. And then just going through and cleaning out all of the
color stuff.
all of the games, just everywhere we were using colors. I'm just updating that all. And I have all that done, so colors changes should be in place. And then once I publish a new one, I'll update packages.json and the lock, and then rebuild. And then I'll probably put that out. The other thing I was doing with it was I was adding just the basic game unit tests to all the games, and they're just getting mangled. A lot of our games just aren't passing them at all.
Yeah. That's no
So I need to
surprise.
figure out what's going on with it. Yeah. So I mean that pull request right now is touched like 30 files. So I think at the end of it, I'll probably have like 30 to 45 files
Yeah.
touched to have everything done. But yeah, so I mean it'll be a pretty big PR. But it'll add unit tests to all of our games and make sure all the games are at least running as of right now. So I think those are pretty good changes to have in place.
Cool. If you put up that pull request by Saturday, there's a good chance I'll be able to review it before the next one. No rush or whatever. It's just I won't have much to do. So reading a giant PR is exactly something that I could be doing, like let's say on a road trip while Synovia drives.
Yeah, I mean, so like I'll get into this later, but I might have a free day on Wednesday, free in quotes, day on Wednesday. So there's a good chance I'll probably get it done like Wednesday, Thursday.
Awesome.
Yeah, and then the other thing I actually noticed was that we have a lot of imports that don't do anything. So like we require in files and functions and functionality and a lot of our stuff, and they're not used anywhere in the file.
Yeah.
Were you aware of that?
No. I mean, probably. It's probably an ESLint thing. I just don't run ESLint anymore when I just push. But I'm sure there's just a bunch of unused imports I can remove.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and just remove them as I see them, probably.
Sure.
But yeah, I just wanted to ask if they were there for like a specific reason or if they were just kind of there for being there.
No, it's like that thing where I forget where I saw it, but it was like years ago at this point, where it was like a commented out print. And it's like, if we remove this, everything breaks. We have no idea why. But like, do not remove this comment. Something like that. Just, yeah, unused imports. We need this. No idea why.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I'll take a look at starting to remove them because like we were importing like colors and stuff into some files and just never using anything underneath colors. So I'll probably just start to clean up that stuff a little bit too. So overall, I think I hope my pull request will reduce the amount of code we have right now. That's my goal.
That'd be nice. Yeah, a little insight into my artistic process is I take the simplest game that we currently have, which I think up to this point was the home button test, and I copy the entirety of it and I paste it into a new class. And I never change the imports. So,
you know what's very interesting? I do the exact same thing, but I do change the imports.
Maybe that doesn't sound good that we both do that. Like,
well, the reason I do that is just because I don't remember all the function names off the top of my head. And I don't want to misspell them because I know that that's a pain in the booty.
what if we
Almost
created
a swear word.
What if we created like a CLI tool? This is my problem. I always just want to do stuff. What if we
Don't whatever you're saying, do not do in this PR because your PR is already going to be long for me to review. So make another PR after this one, and then I'll review this separately. But continue.
what if we created a CLI tool to create a game, to initialize a game? Like,
oh, like React Start, or yeah.
I guess I don't know. I haven't done a React tutorial in like 5 years, so I don't know if they do that now. But if we had like a HG init or something, and it just creates a new game based on the name that you give it as a parameter. So HG init, fastest typer in the West, and it just creates a new class, and you actually wouldn't even have to do anything. You could just do that, and then running Homegames, whatever, would just give you a new square with the default everything, but with your name. So it's like no code getting your thing going.
Yeah, so React does have like a start thing that like builds a really basic React. I think it's called Create React App actually. If you're out there, I think it's like NPX Create React App or something. Whatever. Yeah. Anyway, I think if we built one similar to that, I think that would be pretty cool to do. I think that'd be pretty sick.
But it installs in less than 10 seconds because it's not pulling in every dependency ever built.
Yeah. Create React App can take a while. Yeah. It's not terrible on like fast internet, but it is not great on slow internet.
Yeah, I was trying to learn GraphQL relatively recently, and it's just like you go and you look up any tutorial, and it's just like, oh, install this and this and this. It's like install Apollo, install that, and it's like, oh, and this is Apollo middleware for Express. Blah, 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 blah. And it's just like I just want this like fancy magic over HTTP. Why do I need to download 48 megabytes of dependencies just to get this to work. It's insane. JavaScript is crazy, but whatever.
Yeah. The old like programmer humor jokes of like what's the densest object in the universe, and it's like a black hole, and then it's like the node underscore modules folder. Just like it just gets progressively deeper.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
That's my favorite.
Yeah.
So last week we wanted to talk a little bit about like pick a topic, and I wasn't sure if you were any a chance to work on anything for Homegames. So the topic we had picked out for last week was lag, and talking about kind of where it was coming from, how we could target it, and just kind of generally like getting an idea for where we can start to like shorten the difference between like player A's input and player B seeing the output, basically.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So I kind of wanted to start this off with talking about the fact that we don't, as far as I know, we don't really know where the lag comes from, correct?
No, that was me looking into our to the RTC stuff, was because I originally thought that the socket and like the spikes that we got from like Wi-Fi and just network inconsistency and stuff over the socket were the problem. So I looked into RTC stuff for like that month, thinking that was the solution to everything, but then abandoned that for a lot of reasons, and then never really went back to it. But my thinking was just something generally around the network, which is so stupid because it's like this whole thing is networked, and obviously that's the source. But I mean, maybe something with something being queued up to be sent, like notifying to a client, and there's a spike for like 50 milliseconds, and so that holds up everything else for 50 milliseconds, something like that. Or something like too much input coming from one device. Like if I touch my phone and I drag my finger and it sends like 50 mouse down events because I'm moving my finger, which is like a click and drag, and it's not throttling it anyway, so it's just blasting them out. And then it's a node server receiving them, so it's just like the event loop is just getting overwhelmed by all these different things. Those are my guesses. I don't really know.
Yeah, so I mean, like just in general, if I was going to step through kind of the process for if I make an input, can you correct me if I'm wrong as I kind of talk about the life cycle?
I think I should be able to, but we'll see.
All right, so Yazeed presses a button. That button click event is now sent over the wire, so over internet, to the server. Server does its processing. Once it's finished processing, it'll send a response out to all players. Those players will now receive it, process it by re-rendering, and the button click event will have been completed in the full life cycle.
Unless the button click doesn't have any kind of actual state update. I mean, like, whatever the event does to the game.
Yeah, assuming the button does do something to the tree.
Yeah.
Sorry.
If it modifies the game tree, then the updated state of it will be sent out to clients after that point. Once the state is changed internally, everything that's sent out afterwards will be representative of that new state. But doesn't necessarily guarantee that each client is looking at it in that moment. Just because it's received a buffer, like received the frame, doesn't mean it's actually rendering the frame.
Oh, really? What would cause it to not render the frame? Is it just if that's not visible to that player?
Well, because the client is rendering with request animation frame. So on the client, it's just like as fast as it can. It's like my most recent frame. If I'm like, okay, my most recent frame, and it's state X, and then someone touches something and blah, 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 state Y is now the new thing. My client can receive the update state Y, but I haven't hit that next render yet. So my current
it hasn't
buffer,
pulled again. Okay.
Yeah, it's my current buffer as fast as I can, but the current buffer can change, and then the next render will show that. But that little time, it'll have the newest state, but not be represented on the screen.
Okay, so I mean that's like expected lag though, right? Like we'll always have that problem. There's no way to instantly. It has to be like by a poll that runs occasionally.
Well, we could tell the client, hey, every time that you receive a message, render. Drop everything and render the second that you receive a socket message. But then that kind of, I don't know this for sure, but it seems to me that would break some of the other kind of logic that the client has to do, or not break, but hold up some of that logic. Because if I'm saying, hey, this time request animation frame as fast as you can, browser 60 FPS, 30 FPS, whatever the browser is comfortable doing. When you have time, render this frame and then do it again forever, as opposed to, hey, do everything all the time, and whenever you get a message from the WebSocket, which could be anytime, not only do you store that current buffer, process everything to unsquish it, but also render it. And then it's like, well, you have to have some sort of a refresh thing anyway, because it's like, well, am I now depending on the game server to constantly update everybody for every tick to be like the one source of all renders? Because then it's like, oh, I don't know, it just seems weird for the game server to have to manage everybody's rendering. If the rendering, I think, should be decoupled from the actual server instead of, all that.
I agree. I mean, also partially because that would be pretty brutal in terms of like server downtime, because like you said, Node runs, for people who don't know, Node runs on one process that uses service workers, so it'll actually stall if it's doing a process. So if you read like Node's documentation, they actually don't recommend you do a loop ever. They actually recommend you break up loops into like asynchronous pieces so that it can process it in between like ticks, basically.
And I don't read documentation. I don't really know anything about anything. I just know Node has a single threaded event loop, which is the only real thing that's like technical that I can say about Node. Basically, it has a smart thing figuring out what to do after you tell it all the things that it could do. You say, hey, every 500 milliseconds do this thing, every 30 milliseconds do this thing, and then also execute my main logic here. It'll kind of just it'll figure out what to do or when to do what based off of its own brain, basically.
Yeah, it actually also wouldn't make sense for us to do it asynchronously anyway, because if I'm doing an input and you're doing an input, the order that we do inputs needs to be processed properly in that order, because otherwise it'll look weird if like it's semi-processed what I've done and then semi-processed what you did, right? Because if for example, like I changed the background to blue and then you changed the background to red, it should process where it's like I've changed the background to blue, you've changed the background to red, as opposed to like if we did asynchronously, it'd be like it partially changed it to blue, partially changed it to red, then another piece, then another piece, then another piece, another piece. It actually, I think, take longer to do it that way than to just do it synchronously, or at least it would function more close to what people think how people think it would function.
Well, I guess you could,
without doing it asynchronously.
You can still do it asynchronously. The state is just changed. Eventually, it's like I guess I don't know if synchronously is the determining factor. It's like if I'm running Node and I say a dot thing equals 1. And then eventually a dot thing is equal to 2. Like those, if I call the second call after the first call, the second thing will have to happen after the first thing. There's no multi-threaded magic. There's no like, it's all just timing and when the thing calls the thing, I guess.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. As it cascades back and forth, yes. Yeah. You are correct. But at any rate, JavaScript is pretty cool stuff. Node specifically is pretty cool stuff. So that's one spot. I was going to ask you, like, how sure are we that the server itself is not the main bottleneck? Because for people who don't know, pretty much like the time in transition, so the time from like client to server, the time from server to client, like that transfer time is pretty much out of our control. That's up to like your network speed. So the faster your network speed, the shorter that's going to be. The slower your network speed, kind of like the longer that in-between part's going to be. So really, like the chunks that we control is like how long it takes the client to send, like how long it takes the client basically to like put it across into the wire to be sent, how much time the server takes to transfer, how much time to do its processing, how much time on the other side the client takes to render. So those are like the 3 chunks of like where our code would do a lot of processing power. And then plus what Joseph just said about like the request animation like has its own poll that it runs on. So that makes sense as well. So how sure, like where Do you think all three of those individual pieces are relatively fast, or do you think that there is some spots in there that is causing slowdown?
Well, I'm pretty sure the request animation frame stuff runs on the same thread. It's just a fancy way of putting work onto that main thread, or like when to call work on that main thread. But I don't think it's a separate thread. That thing seems, fast. I don't really know if we have control over it. It's just my understanding is that it's the browser executing that as fast as it wants to, I guess, or whatever.
It's going to.
It's up to the browser, I guess. So, from that perspective, seems fine. The squishing and unsquishing is really the thing. Like, squishing is on the server when it says, okay, here I have this game state and I need to turn it into this giant array. And then there's also time to say, I'm sending this array to all these different people. The server, again, is a single-threaded thing, so it's just doing all this while it could be doing other things like updating game state. So that takes away from it. Maybe it would be nice looking into seeing if we can double the amount of servers that everything has. So, like, the game runs on its own process, but then the actual socket stuff happens on a separate thread. So it's just like this weird thing of kind of like how the socket worker works on the client of I take this new thing and I just tell the main guy about it and then he does something with it eventually. Like if I'm updating my game state and I just tell the socket server, like the communication server, hey, here's a new thing for you to send. I don't care if you actually send it or not. Like I'm just doing my game stuff. Anyway, that's all that stuff. I don't know how slow that stuff is. I know squishing and unsquishing is like sub 1 millisecond, so I think that's fine. But there's like the weird spikes over the network. Like for the most part, they're under 1 millisecond, but sometimes they're like 80, 100 milliseconds between the time that a message is sent and a message is received. So that was me thinking like, oh, weird TCP handshake slowness, blah, 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 when I was looking into RTC. I don't know if that's the case. I never really looked into it more than that, but there's, like Yazeed said, there's quite a bit happening there. Different things on different, like some of that stuff is happening on the client, some of it's on a server. Sometimes you can just like both of those things combine and make something that's super slow. Sometimes it doesn't really, whatever. Like it's kind of complicated, but I don't really know.
To kind of go along with that question, then, should we add time constraints on functions when we're doing unit tests?
No.
So no. So like for example, like if I call your handle player or handle add any player, sorry, if we unit test that function, we should say like that takes like I don't know sub 1 second, or do you not think we should add time constraints to it?
I think when the second that we start to add time constraints, it starts to be this weird thing of like, oh, my computer was running iMessage and someone, sent me a text the second that the unit test ran and my CPU hiccuped and it failed the unit test because it took 1.01 seconds because my computer was doing something else. Then it's like, well, that's on your computer now. What about a slower computer? What about a faster computer? I mean, it's kind of like this whole thing of if it's some CPU intensive thing in that function, then it'll execute faster on beefier CPUs. But having a baseline across everybody, like what if someone's trying to run this stuff on a toaster? Homegames really does run on a toaster. Like you can get a 1 CPU EC2 instance and run it on that. Like that thing's probably not going to finish that in sub 1 second if something else is happening on the machine at the same time, like I think it's just hard to be consistent and accurate with the timing stuff and not just be constantly tweaking it. Like, oh, that took 1.5 seconds. Should I change the test to 2 seconds, or should I like? Then what about next time? Is like, oh, it took 2.5. Should I change it to 3? Like, whatever, If it's broken, it's broken. If you have a set timeout that takes like 4 hours to execute, then maybe we'll catch that. But that seems like a more special case,
Yeah. I mean, I guess in general, like, we aren't going to check for speed in games then when we're reviewing code. Like, if somebody was going to create a new game, like, we wouldn't check for, like, how quickly your code executes.
I think if someone has, like, an n squared or, n cubed or whatever operation, and we're like, hey, you can make this constant or you can make this, linear, then we could add that comment, be like, hey, this is actually going to be bad. But if it's like, oh, this will get bad if you have 6,000 players connected, it's like, well, no one cares, you know?
Yeah.
And it's kind of, we are actually literally the gatekeepers for this, but we're not really. I'm not trying to put too many rules in it. You know what I mean? It's kind of like I think I called it like a big tech hippie thing before. I think if someone wants to write code in a way that works and it's not ideal, like that's part of the learning thing. Like they could be like, oh, you know, I wrote this a year ago and it was hot garbage, and it still got approved, and then I come back to it a year later, 2 years later, and I can make it better. But I'm not going to say, hey, this hobby that like you're doing, this like side project and this whatever, not good enough. Like, I don't want to do that.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. Did you have anything you wanted to talk about for lag?
No, not for lag. I think, there's a lot to explore there, and I would like to set up some developer tools and some different things to better track that. I think we'll probably have a larger discussion later about how we track those metrics and what we consider to be a success in lag. Because I'm really not happy with the current state of the network performance, and that's why I spent a month looking into RTC. But I think that conversation will always be going on in some way, the lag discussion, the performance discussion.
That makes sense. Oh, shoot, I actually had another question that I was going to ask you, and then I just completely spaced it.
That's all good. It'll come back to you.
Do you remember in our networking class, there was something called TTL? Time to L.
I thought that was time
Is that
to
what
live.
TTL was for?
I thought it's about a cache. That's a caching thing. Talk about TLS?
Okay, never mind then. What does TLS stand for?
Security something? The little security. I don't know.
No, wasn't there, either in TCP or UDP, wasn't there like a timestamp that could be like sent along with the network request? So you can say like this was sent at this time, and then we could also be like, oh, when was it received?
I'm sure there in the protocol there's some sort of timestamp thing on it.
I don't remember what it was called though. I'm almost 100% sure it was part of the protocol, but I don't remember.
Oh, maybe TTL, because if it's like, hey, I sent you this thing 40 milliseconds ago and it has a 80 millisecond whatever, it basically, maybe it'll be like, drop this if you receive it after 80 milliseconds or something.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you that because I was talking to one of our other friends, or I don't know if you'd consider him a friend, one of my other friends, about fighting games. You know, fighting games deal with stuff like drop frames and lag and stuff like that. And he was actually, like with rollback and like how all that stuff works. And it got me thinking, like, how would we, first of all, like, would we need to address that? That's one. Two, how would we even begin to address it? Because there's actually like an open source protocol in the fighting game community to how to deal with drop frames in a way that, like, I guess most fighting game players thinks is like the ideal way.
GGPO, is that what the acronym is?
Yeah. It's something like that. I don't remember the exact thing, but like there's like a criteria and like an open source like way of how they expect to deal with like input lag, and also just like the difference in when you're playing online of like, if I do something, you won't see it immediately, even though my computer's gonna be processing it immediately. Yeah. But that's a little bit different than how like Homegames works. Sorry, you can
no, yeah, that's I just watched a really awesome video from one of the lead engineers or something on Skullgirls, that fighting game. Maybe this is this conversation was about, but yeah, it was on Reddit of this person talking about why Wi-Fi sucks, and I watched it because I thought it was like super relevant to what we're talking about here. And he was showing the ping time just from like the Google DNS server, and he's just like, yeah, these are all super consistent until here's like a crazy spike, and it's just over Wi-Fi versus wired. And he's just talking about like the interference and whatever of Wi-Fi is just so complex and so crazy that it's basically something that you just have to account for, you can't avoid. So that whole thing, and just talking about like really in depth about like, oh, here you see that there was a GGPO decided to roll back however many frames because these things spiked too high above its tolerance, whatever, for latency. And so, it's like a very small handful of frames. It's maybe like a tenth of a second, but it'll just go back and like all these little things that you barely even notice. Or like weird kind of optimizations about like, I think I read it Doom or not Doom, one of the network games like Quake or whatever, would do things like, oh, if you're walking in a straight line, you probably assume that the player is going to continue walking in a straight line, but then when they don't, it's like, well, what you have to you trying to like predict stuff and be smart about stuff, but then you can't be because people could put in whatever at any time. And I think, like, kind of like you were like alluding to at the end, Skullgirls doesn't work like this because if I have a game running, like actually running on my machine, and it has the game logic there, and it's not just talking to another thing to sync up that game logic, if I hit the button to punch, my game, the guts of it, know to punch. Like I'm not telling it something to update a state. Like my thing can punch even before the actual internet thing happens, and the other person even has the ability to know that I punched. So it's like this weird sync thing where the network is always trying to synchronize it between clients, but in this case, we have no clients to synchronize. It exists one place. The only synchronization is the current view state on each client, which is kind of different.
Yeah, so that was kind of like what I was going to ask about. So because it's so different, because it's our processing is all done on the server, so everybody's inputs will go to the server and then they'll come back out to everybody as the output, basically. Yeah. There is no like I hit the up key, so my computer moved up, and then everyone else has to update to catch up with me, basically. Right. So do you not think that having something like that though would correct or at least kind of alleviate some of the like weird lags? It wouldn't alleviate the lag spikes, but it would make it less noticeable, basically, where you wouldn't catch them as often.
I think it would be hard because, excuse me, if I said I have 10 people playing this game and I have this square and I'm moving the square with my arrow keys, I'm just moving it up, down, left, right, diagonal, whatever. One client is like, hey, I get 10 messages in 10 seconds. Like, I'm slow. I'm messing up whatever on my network or whatever. And, yeah, it took me... I'm getting them in like 100 milliseconds or something like that. Well, should the other clients roll back, or should this client just say, like, forget it, I'm slow or whatever, and then I'll catch up later? Like, it's all TCP, so we can't do... like. One thing taking a long time to get the message, I'm assuming, is holding up the server in that case to send out that message, and so because it has to do the whatever, figuring out the TCP logic of like actually figuring out if it received a message or whatever, like actually finishing the connection or the whatever. Terrible explanation, but so I'm assuming that one thing could slow down everybody. If one thing taking a long time to get a message means that the one server is taking a long time to send this one message. So I guess I don't even know how it works. You know what I'm saying? Like, we can't roll back other clients if one client is slow. And then if we did, it's like, okay, well, then the client has to tell the server that it's slow. And then the server has to go and be like, okay, well, hopefully it just gets better for this client because the network conditions are... we don't control those, and it's the same game. It's the same thing that we're doing, so I guess I don't know how we would handle it. Maybe we could just say to a client, like,
so the reason I was asking was because kind of like the way I'm imagining is like most of the games that we'd be playing, or like most games we'd be making, would be played over Wi-Fi, right? Like, unless everyone's having a LAN party and bringing a desktop to play home games.
Well, even then it'd be...
most of it are going to be like playing on their phone or something.
There's no, like... I mean, yeah, you're right, desktops. There's no... I'm assuming a lot of people will play this on phones if they do or whatever at all.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Like phones, iPads.
Which don't have Ethernet ports.
Yeah. So, like, wouldn't having, like, something like how the fighting games deal with Wi-Fi problems help us to deal with the Wi-Fi problems of, like, occasionally just the Wi-Fi's like XD? I don't know where any of these things were sent to, honestly. Like, they just disappeared into the ether.
What's what I'm saying? Like, we can't solve the problem in the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we can only be slowed down by the Wi-Fi, and we can't really fix anything because it's like, oh, well, you got the frame slower.
Oh, sorry. Maybe I should have explained a little bit more. So, because most or everybody would be playing over Wi-Fi, wouldn't we be able to expect, like, if one person gets lag, like, everyone's going to get hit by the same, like, problems with the Wi-Fi?
Not necessarily. I don't. I mean, I.
Is Wi-Fi really that confusing? I don't remember from networking how bad Wi-Fi was.
We never learned about Wi-Fi specifically. It was like, oh, magic signals, internet over that. We learned about like everything over like how the internet works. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but the actual how my device is talking to the router, no idea how that actually works. But I mean, I guess I can't assume that if your device is slow, everyone's device is slow. If I'm in, well, go ahead.
Couldn't we poll and figure out if the average player's device is slow? So, like, if the average, I don't know, catch time, basically, like, you know, the server throws the output out, and the catch time, if the average catch time is over a certain threshold, we know, like, oh, like, most people are having a problem.
Well, the clients would have to report that back. It's not like the server would actually know that. So
yeah,
they would report it back, and the server would say, okay, well, yeah, I could get those numbers and say I know that everybody is getting the messages over 100 milliseconds, but what's the resolution? Like, the game is running slowly. If it's your Wi-Fi that's making this slow, I don't know, like, get out of the aluminum foil room or something? I have no clue. But then if you're not in the aluminum foil room, then what is the problem? If it's the game logic being unoptimized, I mean, I can't fix that on the fly in the game.
Couldn't we? So, idea time, big brain time, right? So we talked about having a queue that sends out messages at a certain pace, correct? So what if we catch that the average client is taking too long to receive, we shorten the amount of time between sends. So we're sending out more often, so that even if you miss a frame, it's less. You're missing less each time. You're missing, like, the delta between frames is smaller because the frames are being sent out more or quicker, right? And then as people's connections kind of resume to regular speed, then we increase the time back up to, you know, whatever the standard, like, time of sending off is. And that way, wouldn't we sort of handle like lag? And we could even do it if one person was having a lot of lag, like one person was sitting in like a weird spot in a room or something that the Wi-Fi connection is really slow, right? Or we could always just poll like what the average person is. So in that way, what we have is the server sends off a timestamp as part of its squished game state. The client receives it, checks the timestamp, and says like, "Yikes, this is too long." Sends a message back to the server. The server catches it and says like, "Oh, people are taking too long. Let's have the game time. Like, let's have the how often. Half the time it takes between responses out to the clients."
That's assuming that the clients can handle more messages, and the problem is that there's too much time between them, I guess. Because if the problem is that my phone is 5 years old and it can't handle all these messages coming in, and the time it takes from the time, like, that server said, hey, because the server, I'm fairly certain, has to wait for all messages to be sent in the sequence before they go on to the next. So me increasing the time it takes for the messages, if the problem is I send a message and there's 50 milliseconds of it being in the ether until it gets to the device, that 50 milliseconds is going to be there regardless. And I'm just increasing the work that the server has to do now because I'm saying send them more often. The slowness is still going to be the slowness. I'm just adding more to it. You know?
I see.
And again, that's assuming that the client can handle more. If it's like, yeah, my Android phone is running all this garbage on it. I have an NES emulator running in the background, and I have 14 Chrome tabs. Well, maybe my CPU is being bogged down, and maybe the network...
Well, that's why I said the time to receive the message. So it takes a look at, like, oh, it takes me... The message was sent at, like, say, like, 10 o'clock exact, and I received it at 10 o'clock and 57 milliseconds, sorry. And that's just outside of our... Then we just hold on to that data. I mean, we could also... I mean, I don't know if this is a good idea. I was just throwing it out there. Something I thought of, like, oh, what if we did something like this? Like, kind of like a variable queue send-off time.
Yeah, I think a client telling the server that it's not able to handle messages as fast as the thing is sending, or if there's something wrong with the network there, it makes sense for the server to have some sort of a fallback. I just I think it's really hard to know what to do. If I say, okay, well then variable Q, I can slow it down. I can slow the tick rate down, and maybe that does something to let clients like catch up or whatever. But again, if the underlying problem is that they're running some sort of background process, or that the server is running an inefficient code, then those problems are just those problems. And if I have too big of a message, for example, if I'm sending like a 2 megabyte message over the WebSocket, that message is just going to be slow. There's not much you can do to fix that. And in that case, when the client sends back, hey, it took me 400 milliseconds to get that message, does the server have to know if it's likely because it was a 2 megabyte message, or know that it was because of bad Wi-Fi, or know that it was because network activity on the device was being hogged up some other type of thing for those like 20 seconds? Like, we don't really know. And even if we could figure it out, it's like, well, what do we do? Having kind of a recovery
okay, all right, fair enough. Idea time again. What if instead the server maintained an average catch time for the clients across all messages sent? That should account for occasional random lag spikes, should account for occasionally very large messages, should account for client's CPU randomly spiking. And then if that average gets too high, then we start to, then we can take a look at how we handle it.
Sure.
Then we can start to vary it. So instead of looking at one and being like, oh shoot, this one was slow, quick, speed up the time we send it, the queued up in outputs. Taking the average should kind of like take the edge off a little bit, I think.
Kind of, but if I have one device that is, let's say I have the host machine running, the thing that's actually running the node server, and then I have someone in the, the furthest reaches, like basically the end of the Wi-Fi range, and really bad setup, they're getting like a 20th of what they should be on the network. Let's say that my time to talk to the server on average is 10 milliseconds, and this person on average is 60. Well, I have an average of 35 milliseconds, and let's say that I say that.
Jeez, hold on. Sorry, that was good math. Good job. Sorry, continue.
Let's say that if I have an average, everything needs to be under 50 on average, then I'm good. So that's just the problem with averages in general. Like, if you have more people playing, you'll get better data here. But I'm saying in this scenario, which I would say is not uncommon, have one thing running the server, one thing playing, and it's on a bad connection. On average, your connection's great. But, I guess there's just such a complex thing of what could be going wrong there, that there's an even more complex thing of programmatically solving all those issues on the fly, when at the end of the day, I can just hand wave it and say Wi-Fi slowness, big messages, and magic. And that probably is something that we just acknowledge is there. And one client taking 45 milliseconds to get a message is slowing down all clients by 45 milliseconds, because they're not getting their time or whatever to actually get their message, because the server is in that moment slowed down on this one client. It's just
that's interesting.
I guess it's all very hard.
Maybe okay.
Go ahead.
Maybe this week after I put out the pull request, I'll write something up on this, because I think I might be able to tempt you with this idea.
Okay.
I really think this is a good idea.
We can determine whatever. I just fail to. I don't see how there's any way that we can solve the problem. Knowing there's a problem is one thing, and we know there's a problem today. But there's no whatever. We'll see, but I don't see it.
Okay, no worries.
Write up a Medium post. Be like a smug tech blogger.
I was gonna just I was gonna just write up like a Google Doc explaining like my reasoning on it, and then send it your way. Then you can take a look at it.
Step 1:
Because I
install a Apollo Express server. Everything will be solved. Just add these 14 dependencies.
No. All right. Do you have anything else you want to add to home games, or should we move on to what's up?
No, that's all for home game stuff for me.
Hey, that was like an hour-long home game stuff. That was a lot of stuff
I don't know how we
cover.
do it.
So what's up, man? How's it going?
Still moving. Like I mentioned earlier, this room is mostly empty. There's a Home Depot box behind me and a towel behind me. But we moved the bed, all my clothes, all my shoes, my video games, basically everything that I'm not currently using to record this is in a box somewhere, or our TV. And then I have my laptops and stuff for work. But yeah, just chilling. I have my keyboards, all like 7 of them packed away and safe. My vinyl collection, I like quintuple bubble wrapped it, so hopefully that makes it safe in its journey, because some of that stuff is rare. And yeah, I don't know, being exhausted.
You told me like some of those vinyls like your Nana gave you, right?
Those are the ones I have
like
at
one of a kind.
The ones I have at home, like real home, are those. The ones I have out here are the ones I bought out here for Record Store Day and just online or whatever over the past 4 years. Yeah, been out here for 4 years.
I got you. I have a question for you. Then you said you already packed up your bed.
The
you guys are gonna be there for a little bit
guest
longer,
room
right?
bed.
Oh,
I was
gonna say, where are you two sleeping? Like, oh, we don't need this. Don't need the toilet paper either. Like,
on the last day, we are gonna have to sleep on the floor because they're picking this up. They're picking up the containers on Wednesday. So Wednesday night, Thursday night, we're gonna have no bed, and we leave Saturday morning.
Yikes!
Yeah, it'll be rough. But I bought a bunch of Starbucks, like mocha whatever drinks. So I have the Dunkin' Donuts coffee from last time. I have more of the Starbucks things. I got yerba mate, whatever. It's like a tea. It totally sucks. It tastes like trash. And then I got a whole other thing of Starbucks, like the pre-made coffee. And then I have some of my coffee still, some of my Stumptown that I've been making here. So anyway, I have a whole plan to get rid of all my coffee for this next week, but we're gonna pack up the coffee maker in a couple days. So that's why I have all the pre-made coffees.
Okay. I thought you were just gonna drink all of them on your drive, and I was like, you're gonna be stopping a lot, dude.
I'd be dead on that drive. I have a family member who did the drive in one big go, and he was like doing all the little energy shots at every little gas station on the way, and he was like, from the story he told me, he was like close to death. His heart was racing and his eyes were like, that he just like went really hard on the caffeine. So I'm trying to not do that, but I'm also kind of trying to do that. So
I think it's like a rite of passage for long-term driving.
Yeah.
I hate road trips for that reason, though, so much.
It'll be fun. I'm just excited to go home and be done with this whole place. And Seattle's cool. I just don't want to live here anymore.
Yeah, I respect.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about something I'm very jealous of?
Oh, yeah. So I only played this for like an hour. I packed up all my VR stuff already, but I finally played Half-Life Alyx for, like 50 minutes, something like that. It's cool.
How was it, man?
It's cool.
Nice. Yeah.
I don't.
Was it clean? Did it function properly? I want to know, like, how easy was it to manipulate?
It was good. I mean, like all the physics and stuff are good. You can go and pick up stuff, and like writing on the wall with a marker and stuff is one of the first things you can do in the game, and it feels really nice. I think it's more of a me thing, but I am constantly uncomfortable in general, but especially in VR. Like in VR, I just really can't find a good flow because I can always feel the giant like thick cable on like coming down my neck and then to my leg and wrapping around my leg as I twist, and losing your sense of where you are in the real world, but having to constantly take off your thing and check to make sure you're not in the wall or you're gonna punch a wall or you're gonna whatever. Like I'm never comfortable in VR, so playing that game was cool. It's just same VR stuff. Oh, and I wear glasses that don't fit underneath the thing, and I refuse to wear contacts, so I can't see. Everything is fuzzy in VR. And my head is weirdly shaped and big, so it doesn't like fit quite great. And then just constantly having to check the real world to see where I am. It really takes me out of the game. So it's cool. I just can't enjoy it, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
See, this is one of those advantages of having hilarious amounts of empty space. I'm pretty much never afraid of running into stuff. Yeah. Although now I have dog, and I don't know how she's going to react if I just start maneuvering around the world.
Yeah. And just the fact that you know that she's there will always make you think that you have to check for her. So if you're playing a game like Half-Life, you're constantly turning and stuff. Like you're walking and you do the teleport walk. But if you're standing here and you want to look here, like to solve a puzzle, there's little puzzles and stuff like that. Like, okay, well now I'm facing this way. And in your head, you forget where you really are. So you're like, okay, I'm facing this way. Oh, and now I'm walking this way. So I teleport, but I'm still in the real world facing this way. And then I start turning left and left and left again. And if I'm really just twisting in place. And the cable for the headset is just wrapping around my leg. And it's getting like tense and weird because it's all tangly. And it's like, okay, well, I'm trying to play the game, but I can feel this thing getting tangled around me. So I should probably fix that. And then like, I don't know, just the unknown, the fact that you know that you're not really there and having to check in with the real world is not easy.
That's true. If ever they invent like a VR room, I already have a room ready for it.
Well, now that the bed is out of here, this room is actually perfect for VR, but I packed everything up today, so bad timing. Oh,
that's all right. I'm excited for you. I'm really glad that you got to play that game because I'm super jealous and I really want to play that game too.
You too can play that game. You have a VR setup.
I do have a VR setup. The problem is I'm hilariously lazy.
True.
And I don't like buying things that I know I'm excited for.
We're not game sharing on Steam, are we?
No.
We could be. I'm sharing with JC and Alex.
We could be. I don't know if I want to take away from Alex 90% of his Steam.
Alex hasn't bought a game in like 5 years. He just leeches off my Steam library. To the point where sometimes I feel bad for playing my own games. I'm like, oh, I want to go play a game. And then I see he's online playing something. I'm just like, oh, I'll go play something on Battle.net. Oh, I'll go play something on Epic Game Store. I don't want to bother him. Screw that guy.
That's so funny. On my side of things, I actually have what may actually be an uncomfortable story to tell. So, my friend paid for a random lady to play 2 games of League of Legends with me.
Oh.
On a website called like epal.gg.
What?
Yeah.
Why?
I think it's because I'm like the last single person in our friend group. And so I think to some extent it's like, oh, this looks like something kind of like goofy that a single person could do. Let's make Yazeed do it. So like, I think that has to be why he got it for me.
How was it? When's the wedding?
She was nice. She was actually super nice. I mean, she was being paid to be nice to me. So, I mean, I expected her to be. But it was fun. I mean, like, the thing is that I'm used to playing League of Legends with people I've known for a very long time. So, like, playing with her was kind of uncomfortable. Yeah. But she definitely was the, like, I don't want to say she was, like, the stereotype for, like, a gamer girl. But, because I think that's kind of messed up. But it did kind of feel like she was a stereotype for a gamer girl.
Was she good?
Like, she's way better than me, dude. Absolutely. Honestly, like, she just told me what to do and I did it. And that's why we won. Like, I'm an idiot and she's much better than me.
Nice.
Yeah.
What?
Overall, I don't know if I would do it again. It was like a weird gift and it was fun, but I wouldn't pay for it for myself if, like...
It's just bizarre to me. So what's the expectation? Like, it's really just like rent a female friend? Is it catered just for female friends or is it anybody?
Yeah, so originally the website was called egirl.gg and it was specifically for you to play with girls or ladies. I don't know how old they are.
Should
but
be over 18. Rebranded. What the fuck?
I mean, I assume she was. I didn't ask, but I also wasn't like, hey, baby. Yeah. Like, what are you wearing? It's just like, what do you play in League? Like, let's just play these games. Yeah. They rebranded to epal.gg, so you too could play video games with randos on the internet if you wanted to.
If we get famous, can we just start charging people for our time? But like play Modern Warfare.
There's a really famous streamer actually. I think that charges 69 cents or $6.90 per game or something like that. This guy's toast. So it's pretty funny.
69 cents is a bargain. I'd play a game for 69 cents.
They're not cheap. They're not expensive. Yeah. Like, my friend told me it was like $4 for 2 games. So that's like 2 hours. It's like $2 an hour for her.
Crazy. Yeah, but then you have to, like, be an entertainer. You have to be like, so, where are you from? Or whatever.
Nah, she didn't even get in voice with me. We just played 2 games. Yeah.
So how do you know for sure it was a female?
I don't know if she was or not. I assume she was, but I don't know.
Here's our new business. We, in text, tell people we're female. We never do the voice thing. We're basically just catfishing people. Just put up pictures of like Belle Delphine and whatever, and then we'll be Belle Delphine in text for people, and we'll just play WoW or whatever. What do you think?
The WoW ones are the most expensive ones.
There you go. Best business opportunity.
It kind of was. Like, we were looking at it afterwards to like what game was the most expensive one. I think World of Warcraft was the most expensive one.
I believe it because probably the people who play that are like the most into it and require the most of it. Like if you're doing role play servers and stuff, you know what I mean? I'm assuming people get weird on that.
I think that people were using it to just pay for like what's called mythic runs, which is basically you get your booty carried through like a really hard dungeon. Like basically like you're the idiot baby and they're all the parents. They're just trying to get you through it. And I think people are just using it as a way to pay for those. That's what it seemed like anyway. I mean, people were paying for those anyway, but I think it's just like a more legitimate way to pay for those.
There's something very sad about what you just told me. The whole setup that this exists. Like,
yeah,
my friends paid for a girl to play a game with me, but the girl didn't even talk to me. I think it was a girl. Anyway, we talked for like 2 hours, and she was really good.
Yeah. She was really good.
It's just weird.
It was okay. I mean, the thing is, like, League of Legends is played with 4 randoms for me for the most part. So I was just like, this is just a friendly random who's not going to flame me. And she didn't flame me, and I like that.
You pay for it. That's just.
I mean, I didn't.
Someone does. That's bizarre.
Yeah, it was interesting. It was interesting. I mean, if you're out there and you're lonely.
Many of us are.
Homegames. Also, like, you could pay like $2 for a game with her or a random person.
If you're out there and you're lonely, follow us on Twitter at Homegames.io.
That's right.
Because we too are lonely, and we'll respond to whatever you tell us.
That's true. That is true. The other news that I had is actually this coming week, officially adopting Sapphire. So for people who don't know, in Arizona or Pima County, maybe, you can't legally adopt a dog from a shelter unless that dog is spayed or neutered. And because of coronavirus and everything, they couldn't spay her. So I technically pre-adopted her. So she's technically owned by the state, which is like a weird middle ground. But yeah, after this week, she'll get spayed, and then I will own her.
Very nice. You'll be an official dog dad.
No one hurts to hear. Yeah, but yeah, I'll officially own her, and then for like 14 days or something like that, we need to cut her activity level down pretty significantly. So it'll be interesting figuring out how to like
go on runs
keep her happy
without running.
Yeah. Because I mean, like, we right now walk 6 miles in a day usually, so I just gotta cut it down to like maybe 2 miles a day for at least like 14 days, at least until it becomes obvious her stitches aren't gonna fall out while we're walking.
Right.
And then kind of to go along with that, I really genuinely feel like there's a secret society of dog owners.
Dog owners?
And I feel like I'm not actually, and I feel like I'm only right now sort of getting into that. Hi, lady. Only like right now getting into that.
What makes you feel like there's a secret society of dog owners?
So, for example, every person I've seen with a dog will talk to me, and that's never happened before. And I don't like it. Yeah. I'll be like, I used to go on runs every afternoon. No one ever stopped me to talk to me. Now I have a dog. every other dog owner is like, what kind of dog is that? How well behaved is she? How come my dog isn't as well behaved as your dog? And it's just like, I don't know. You're not as good owner as I am. I don't know. It's like my dog's more chill than your dog, really, is what it comes down to. I don't know what to tell you. And it's just like this weird thing where it's like more people interact with me every day now than probably in the last like 7 months. I've met more neighbors in the last like 4 weeks than I have in the last year.
Do you think maybe you give off the vibe of being someone who's more approachable now that you have a dog and you are like, you're probably like energetic and like smiling and stuff instead of, because I've seen you don't look very welcoming like just on the street.
I would like to say that I'm always approachable and I'm always smiling, but when I'm running I'm probably frowning and breathing really hard.
Yeah.
And just generally not happy.
I think it's probably a people having a dog, seeing that you have a dog and being like, oh, let's talk about dogs. And then also probably some other subconscious thing where just having her probably makes you look more talkable.
Maybe. I also probably I feel more confident interacting with other people because I have to interact with her more.
There you go.
So it's probably a confidence thing too.
Yeah. It's like it's like when you're in high school and you think that girls don't like nice guys or whatever, and you just realize because you're a bum. It's like, oh, this is your fault.
It's not confident like, damn, I'm so attractive. It's more confident like, I know if I tell her to do something, she'll do it. And I know I'm like responsible to make sure that she makes it back to the house okay at the end of every day.
Yeah. Yeah. All I'm saying is it's a you problem. Not that you're attractive to your dog or whatever. Just that you need to be able to believe in yourself, you know?
Thank you. But yeah, I don't know. I really do genuinely feel like there is a society of dog owners out there who are just like waiting to talk to other dog owners about like what kind of dog you have and how much does she eat and does she shed.
It sounds like conversations I don't want to have.
Yeah, right? Like, can you imagine if you're like a big dog and some rando is trying to talk to you about your big dog and your dog's like not having it? That would suck.
When we were moving the boxes today, there was a little kid hanging out in the tree. He just like climbed the tree and hung out in the tree.
That's a little kid thing to do. That's a power.
We lived in an apartment complex and he was just in the tree. And every time I saw him, I kept seeing him because we were out there for like an hour and he was out there for the whole time. It seems like every time he was within like 20 feet of me, he would just say hi and then tell me about his updates that he had from the past time I saw him. And he was telling me about these ladybugs that he found and the tree that he was in and the bush that he was standing in earlier and all that. That dude's very confident in his conversation. I didn't give a heck about what this gentleman was saying, but he thought I wanted to hear it, you know. He believed I cared, so he just came up to me and started talking. And that exhausted me, so I can't imagine having a dog. People feel like they can do that to me.
Yeah. It's an entirely different experience. My favorite part is actually that my dog doesn't bark or really like want to interact with other dogs, and other people's dogs go like hog wild to try to fight her. So it's really funny to see these owners like stare at me as I'm just like, come on, and then their dogs are like screaming their heads off like, fight me, coward. I don't know. It makes me feel good. Not that I've done anything to earn this ability. She came naturally like this. It's just funny.
That silent confidence. She's like, I could beat up any of these dogs. I just choose not to.
I'm almost 100% sure she's thought about eating small dogs that we've come across. Right. I'm like, she does the same little like prancy walk she does when she also sees a rabbit sometimes. And I'm like, you went from being like chill, snuffing the dirt to being like, this is something I could eat for sure. Like, please don't eat this other dog. But she did meet small dogs, and she did really well. She kind of just said hello, and they said hello. And the owner was like, you have a very well-behaved dog. And I was like, thanks. I did none of this. Hey. Sorry, she's fighting me. But yeah, I don't have anything else for what's up. My life has become dog-based.
Nice. Yeah, my life is moving. Your life is dog. And we have home games in the middle.
That's right.
Is it time for
do you want to move on?
Song of the Week?
Yeah, buddy. So I want to start because I can.
Yeah.
I listened to Fiona Apple, and I think it's really interesting music. Like I feel like I want to listen to it more, but I don't feel like I would listen to it casually, if that makes sense.
Totally makes sense.
Like, I feel like I would listen to it, but specifically I would sit down and be like, I'm going to listen to some Fiona Apple, because she does some, like, interesting stuff. Like, she samples dogs barking in one of her songs.
Did you listen to the album, or
And
just
I'm
that
kind
song?
of into that. I listened to all of her songs on Spotify with more than 2 million streams,
Did you listen to?
which is like 6 songs.
Did the intro song from her newest album was that included there, or did you actually skip the song? It's I think I want you to want me, or I want want.
Yeah, the love one. Yeah. I listened to that one actually. That was the least favorite one I listened to. I think my most favorite one was the Shamika.
Is that the one that I've got potential? Or you've got potential?
Maybe. I don't remember. I just remember her saying the name Shamika, and I was like, interesting.
I don't know.
I like that one. And then I don't remember the name of the song, but one of the songs she samples dogs barking, and I was like, is this in the song or is this my dog? And I couldn't tell the first time because it just happens kind of randomly in the first time it happens. But then I realized like, oh, it's just a sample loop. So I was like, okay, cool. So I think that's really cool. I think she's really interesting to listen to, but I don't know if I'd casually listen to her. My song of the week is Too Soon featuring Maddie Noise. Oh, that's interesting. His last name is Noise, by Vanek.
That sounds like a 12-year-old rapper. Maddie Noise? Is that like something else? Please tell me it's not a 12-year-old rapper.
It is not a 12-year-old rapper. It does not rap at all. It's just kind of like it reminds me of it is a breakup song. So it's got that like breakup song vibe to it, but I kind of like it. This week was actually like popping off on my Spotify Discover Weekly. Like of the 30 songs, I liked 24 of them. Wow. So this is like, it was really close between like this and 4 other songs that I was like, oh, and I picked this one because it was the most different than some of the other songs I've listened to. But yeah.
Nice. I listened to, what was your song of the week last week?
Vice by KCB or Naive by KCB?
I think it was Vice.
RKCB?
Yes, Vice. I like that song quite a bit. I listened to it like 3 times today. It was pretty good. Yeah. It was I can't describe it beyond that, really. I just liked it, I guess, is my feedback there. My song of the week. So some stuff came out this week, including a new Drake album, which is full of like songs that have leaked of his over the past couple months. There's one song on there I think you should listen to because I genuinely want to know what you think. So there's a song called Pain 1993 by Drake, featuring Playboi Carti. Have you heard anything by Playboi Carti?
I've never even heard of Playboi Carti before.
He has a song called Magnolia you might have heard. The chorus is...
I think that was one of your songs of the week.
Maybe. I don't remember. But anyway, Playboi Carti does these things with his voice. He just goes super high pitched, and he has kind of a baby voice, not quite 645 AR level, but it's up there. Mm-hmm. So he has a song that leaked maybe like a year ago, 2 years ago, which is one of my favorite songs. One of my favorite songs that's not on Spotify, and it's called Molly / No Stylist. And there's no real official title or whatever, but he has this like really great thing he does with his voice in that song, and I love that song so much. So people talk about his baby voice and they hype it up, and they're very excited for his newest album that's coming out. He's been hyping it up for like a year and a half. So Pain 1993 comes out, which is a Drake song, and there have been snippets online of the Drake part, and the Drake part's very good because Drake knows how to make a song. And anyway, the Playboi Carti verse came out with the full version of that song. Just came out a couple days ago, and me and Synovia listened to it together at the same time. And when Playboi Carti started rapping, we just had this face where we looked at each other and we just knew that was hot garbage. So I want to see what you think about that song and how you think about the sound. And if you're interested in what I think a good version of that is, then look up No Stylist by Playboi Carti. Anyway, No Stylist. Like, I don't have a stylist. All my planes are private.
Oh, stylist, not stylus.
Yeah.
So like not something you use on your iPad,
No.
but like a stylus.
Yeah. Like, he doesn't have a style person. He has no stylist.
That changes things. That changes things a lot, because otherwise I would have been very confused when I couldn't find a song called No Stylist. I was also confused by the name was either Molly or No Stylist. I was like, not really related, but okay.
Yeah, anyway, that's my song. Oh, I haven't even mentioned my song of the week. My song of the week is none of those. My song of the week is Righteous by Juice WRLD. Juice WRLD, I like Juice WRLD a lot. Still very sad that he died. He died in like December.
He died?
He overdosed on drugs.
I didn't know.
Yeah. It's one of those rappers, like, I'm still mad at Mac Miller. Like, I can't listen to Mac Miller music still. But Juice WRLD is like that too. It's just like rappers who die. Just like, I get weird about listening to their music. Anyway, called Righteous. It's a very good song. It's a sad song. All of his songs are about like taking drugs to deal with life. It's pretty dark, but it's a great song, like many of his songs. So I recommend it. It's very good. Righteous by Juice WRLD.
Okay. I do have a question about that then. So do you not listen like Tupac or Biggie Smalls? I think Biggie Smalls is dead.
It's a different thing. I think when a rapper is murdered, it's like tragic. Like, there's a rapper named Pop Smoke that has stuff, and I like some of his music, and he was recently murdered. And that's a different type of thing because it's like tragic, and it's just tragic, and it's a bummer and whatever, but you can go and listen to their music because it's just a rapper that ended in tragedy, whatever. But when it's a rapper who like overdoses on drugs, it's a different thing because it's more, in my opinion, it's like more preventable. Obviously, it's not preventable. Like, there's a bunch of stuff going on there, but like, I guess like I said, I get mad. Like, I get mad at Mac Miller when I listen to Mac Miller because I'm just like, God damn it, you know what I mean? Same as Juice WRLD. It's like severe angry disappointment than what it would be with like a family member who messes up or whatever. You're just like, ugh, you know. Anyway, that's the whole thing. But like, Mac Miller, we saw Mac Miller at Camp Flog Gnaw like 3 years ago in concert. That was pretty great. And we actually had tickets to see Juice WRLD like 6 months ago. And I was like, oh, I don't want to go because I hate going to concerts. So I canceled last minute. So that's a bummer. I regret that because could have seen one of his last shows. But yeah, anyway, Juice WRLD.
I maybe have an off-air topic I want to talk about, but it's stupid.
Great.
But anyway, do you have anything else you want to talk about, or?
No. I'm happy I worked on Homegames. I'm happy that we listened to songs this week. I'm happy I learned that EPAL is a thing, and I'm also disgusted by it. And happy that we're alive, you know?
I am also happy we're alive. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next week.
That all? Am I supposed to say something now?
Normally you say goodbye also, and then I end with bye-bye, and then I cut it at that point. I do it the same way every time. Bye or bye. Yeah. There you go. Bye-bye.